Three men swagger through his door, spurs jingling with each step. Their leader, a wiry man with a snake tattoo crawling up his neck, runs his finger along a freshly forged blade. "Fine work," he drawls. "James Clayton. My friends call me Crazy Jim." His smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Word is you're the best smith between here and Denver." Sam wipes his hands on his leather apron. "I manage. What can I help you with?" "Need some special work done. Modifications to these." Clayton drops 3 pistols on the workbench. "Custom work, the kind no honest man needs." Boss says money's no object. The sound of hammer striking iron rings through the Montana wilderness. In a town where violence simmers beneath the surface, one man thought he could bury his past beneath the sparks of his forge. But some legends can't stay hidden forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun casts long shadows across Copper Springs Main Street as Samuel Hawthorne's hammer strikes true against glowing metal. The rhythmic clunking from his blacksmith shop has become as familiar to the townspeople as their own heartbeats. Sweat glistens on his weathered face as he shapes what will become the blade of a plow, his skilled hands telling nothing of their deadly past. "Señor Sam." Young Gabe Cruz bursts through the workshop door, his enthusiasm cutting through the steady beating of metal on metal. "The Thorn Gang. They're saying they've taken over Three Pines Ranch." Sam's hammer pauses mid-strike, his gray eyes lifting briefly before resuming their work. "That's Sheriff Wilson's business, Gabe." "Hand me that bucket of water." Gabe, eager to please his mentor, scrambles to help. But they say Victor Thorne himself is leading them. 15 men strong, all armed to the teeth. The hot metal hisses as Sam submerges it, steam rising around his scarred hands. Those scars tell stories he'd rather forget. "Every town has its troubles, boy. Ours is lacking in horseshoes and plowshares. Speaking of which," he gestures to the pile of unfinished work. The morning progresses with the usual parade of townspeople seeking Sam's services. Rose Martinez, the saloon owner, needs her brass rail repaired. Old Joe Freeman brings in a broken wagon wheel, his knowing eyes lingering on Sam longer than necessary. Each customer brings gossip about the Thorn Gang, but Sam keeps his head down, focused on his craft. It's near midday when the trouble walks in. "I don't do weapons," Sam replies evenly, turning back to his forge. "Try Carson City, there's a gunsmith there who—" Clayton's hand shoots out, gripping Sam's shoulder. "Wasn't asking, Smith. Boss wants it done by sundown tomorrow." The workshop falls silent save for the crackle of the forge. Sam stands perfectly still, his breathing measured. When he speaks, his voice carries the chill of mountain winter. "Take your hand off me, Mr. Clayton." Something in Sam's tone makes Clayton hesitate, but pride wins out. He squeezes harder. "Or what, old man? You'll hammer me to death?" Sam moves with a speed that belies his years. His elbow strikes Clayton's sternum, followed by a precise blow to the throat. Before Clayton's companions can draw, Sam has their leader bent backward over the anvil, hammer hovering inches from his face. "I said, I don't do weapons." Each word falls like a forge hammer. "Now take your business elsewhere." Clayton's men draw their pistols, but a new voice cuts through the tension. "Everything all right here, Sam?" Sheriff Wilson stands in the doorway, one hand resting casually on his holstered gun. His deputy, young Billy Cooper, flanks him with barely contained excitement. Sam releases Clayton, who scrambles up, face red with rage and humiliation. "This ain't over, Smith," he snarls, backing toward the door. "Nobody refuses the Thorn Gang. Nobody." After they leave, Sheriff Wilson studies Sam with concern. "You just made some dangerous enemies, old friends." "They were already enemies, Tom." Sam returns to his forge, but his hands tremble slightly as he lifts the hammer. They just didn't know it yet. That evening, as Sam closes his shop, he finds Maggie Wheeler, the schoolteacher, waiting outside. Her usual composed demeanor is troubled. I heard about what happened. The whole town's talking. People talk. It'll pass. Sam secures the door, conscious of the weight of her worry. These men, Sam, they're different. Sebastian Drake, the railroad baron, he's backing them. They're not just thugs. They're an army with financial support. Sam's eyes drift to the distant mountains painted purple by the setting sun. Every army has its weakness, Miss Wheeler. He tips his hat and turns to leave. Sam, she calls after him. I've seen you watching the children practice their shooting at the fair, the way you correct their stance without saying a word. A blacksmith doesn't know guns like that. He doesn't turn back. Good night, Miss Wheeler. In his small house behind the shop, Sam lights a lamp and moves to a trunk he hasn't opened in years. The key's weight is familiar in his hand, despite all this time. Inside, wrapped in waxed cloth, lies a gun belt. The leather is worn but well maintained, the holsters holding 2 customized Colts that seem to gleam in the lamplight. Hello, old friends, he whispers. Seems like Copper Springs is about to learn why they used to call me Iron Sam. Dawn barely touches the Montana sky when the first shot rings out. Sam's eyes snap open, his hand already moving to the guns he'd left on his bedside table. More gunfire follows, along with the sound of breaking glass and screaming from the direction of Main Street. He finds Gabe huddled behind his workshop, clutching a broken broom handle like a weapon. Senor Sam, the Thorn Gang, they're shooting up Rose's saloon. Get inside, Sam orders, ushering the boy into his workshop's back room. Lock the door. Don't come out until I call you. The scene on Main Street is chaotic. 3 of Thorne's men are taking pot shots at the saloon's windows while townspeople scatter for cover. Inside, he can hear Rose Martinez shouting Spanish curses. Sheriff Wilson and Deputy Cooper are pinned down behind an overturned wagon, unable to get a clear shot. Sam moves like a shadow between buildings, his presence unnoticed in the mayhem. Old instincts surge back, counting shots, noting positions, identifying threats. But the guns stay hidden under his long coat. Not yet. Come on out, Rose. Crazy Jim Clayton's voice carries over the gunfire. Boss just wants to talk business. About your property rates. Tell your boss he can go to hell. Rose's accent thickens with anger. This saloon belonged to my father and his father before him. A bullet splinters the doorframe near her head, and Sam's jaw tightens. Still moving unseen, he positions himself behind the gunman. His hands itch for his Colts, but 20 years of discipline hold firm. There might still be a way to end this without revealing himself. He picks up a loose horseshoe from the ground and weighs it in his hand. The first throw catches one gunman in the back of the head, dropping him instantly. Before his companions can react, the second horseshoe strikes true, and another man falls. The third spins around, gun raised, but Sam is already moving. The skills that once made him legendary now serve a different purpose as he disarms the man with brutal efficiency. The Smith! The last standing gunman yells before Sam's fist silences him. Clayton emerges from cover, his snake tattoo seeming to writhe as he snarls. Should have minded your own business, old man. His gun clears leather with impressive speed, but Sam is already rolling, snatching up one of the dropped revolvers. 2 shots ring out simultaneously. Clayton's bullet throws splinters from the post behind Sam's head. Sam's shot sends Clayton's gun spinning from his hand. That's enough, Sheriff Wilson's voice booms across the street. He and Deputy Cooper have finally found their opening, moving in with weapons drawn. Clayton, you and your boys are under arrest. Clayton cradles his bleeding hand, eyes burning with hatred. You've got no idea what you just started, Smith. When Victor Thorne hears about this, tell him to come see me himself, Sam interrupts, his voice carrying a deadly calm that makes even the sheriff glance at him sharply. I'll be in my shop. As Wilson and Cooper round up the wounded gang members, Rose approaches Sam. Where did you learn to throw like that? Lots of practice with hammers, he deflects, but she's not fooled. Nobody moves like that from throwing hammers, amigo. She studies him with new interest. The way you handled that gun just now, smooth as glass." Before Sam can respond, Maggie Wheeler hurries over. Her normally pristine dress is dusty from taking cover. "Is everyone all right? Sam, you're bleeding." He touches his shoulder, surprised to find Clayton's shot had creased him after all. "Just a scratch." "Let me help," she insists, but he's already walking away. "Need to check on Gabe," he calls over his shoulder. In truth, he needs to be alone. The familiar weight of the revolver in his hand had awakened something he'd fought 20 years to bury. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Back in his workshop, he finds Gabe safe but bursting with questions. "That was amazing, Senior Sam. Where did you learn to fight like that? Can you teach me?" "What I can teach you is how to fix this dent in Mrs. Anderson's plow," Sam replies firmly. But as they work, his mind drifts to another young man he once mentored, one whose eagerness for violence had led them both down a dark path. That evening, old Joe Freeman visits the shop. The former slave's eyes hold wisdom earned through hard years. "Saw what you did today," he says quietly. "Reminded me of stories I heard years back. About a gunfighter they called Iron Sam. Man who never missed, they said. Man who vanished after Tularosa." Sam's hammer strikes the anvil with more force than necessary. Tularosa was a lifetime ago. "Past has a way of finding us," Joe observes. "Especially when it wears a snake tattoo." At Sam's sharp look, he continues. "Clayton's boss, Victor Thorne? He was there at Tularosa too, on the other side." Sam's blood runs cold. After 20 years, the circle was closing. "You seem to know a lot, Joe. Know enough to understand why a legend might want to disappear, become just another Smith." Joe heads for the door, pausing at the threshold. But legends don't die easy. Sometimes they're needed. Sam works late into the night, each strike of his hammer echoing like distant gunfire. In the darkness of his shop, surrounded by the tools of his new life, the ghosts of Tularosa draw closer than they have in years. And somewhere out there, Victor Thorne is learning that the man who ruined his plans today is the same man who ruined everything 20 years ago. The news spreads through Copper Springs like wildfire. Victor Thorne himself is coming. 3 days after the shooting at Rose's saloon, a cloud of dust appears on the horizon. Sam watches from his workshop as 12 riders enter town, their horses' hooves drumming a rhythm of approaching trouble. Victor Thorne cuts an imposing figure astride his black stallion. Unlike his men's trail-worn appearance, he's dressed like a gentleman, but the 6-gun on his hip isn't for show. His face bears a long scar from jaw to temple, a souvenir from Tularosa that Sam remembers well. "Quite the welcome party," Reverend Hayes murmurs, standing beside Sam. The entire town has gathered on the street, drawn by equal parts curiosity and fear. Sheriff Wilson and Deputy Cooper stand ready, hands near their guns. Thorne's eyes scan the crowd, settling on Sam's workshop. A smile splits his scarred face. "Iron Sam," he calls out, his voice carrying across the sudden silence. "Or do you prefer Mr. Hawthorne these days?" Sam steps forward, conscious of the townspeople's confused murmurs. "Been a long time, Victor. 20 years, 2 months, and 13 days. Thorne dismounts smoothly. "Not that I've been counting. You look different without all that blood on you." Maggie Wheeler pushes through the crowd. "Sam, what's he talking about?" "Ask him about Tularosa," Thorne answers before Sam can speak. "Ask him about the day Iron Sam became a legend, and I became this." He gestures to his scar. 37 men died that day. Good men. Brothers. They were rustlers and killers. Sam's voice carries steel beneath its quiet tone. They had a whole town under siege. They were soldiers. Thorne's composure cracks. War was over, but the Union still wanted its pound of flesh. We were protecting our people. By stealing their cattle? Burning their homes? Sam takes a step forward. The war didn't give you the right to prey on innocent folks, Victor. Old Joe Freeman speaks up from the crowd. I remember Tularosa, bunch of former Confederate raiders terrorizing freed slaves and Mexican farmers, until one man stood against them. Thorne's men shift restlessly, but their leader holds up a hand. Ancient history. I'm here about the present. My man Clayton says you interfered with some business negotiations. If that's what you call shooting up a saloon. Sam's eyes narrow. This is a peaceful town, Victor. Whatever game you're playing with Sebastian Drake and his railroad, take it elsewhere. A flash of surprise crosses Thorne's face. You always were too clever for your own good, Sam. But times change. These days, progress comes with a price. Rose Martinez's saloon sits on land the railroad needs. The Chinese laundry, too. And that nice schoolhouse where Miss Wheeler teaches. His gaze slides to Maggie. Shame if anything happened to it. The threat hangs in the air like gun smoke. Sam's hands clench, but before he can respond, Gabe suddenly rushes forward. You can't threaten us, the boy shouts. Senor Sam won't let you. Gabe, no! Sam reaches for him, but Thorne is faster. The gang leader snatches Gabe's arm, spinning the boy around to face Sam. This one's yours? Thorne asks, his grip tightening until Gabe winces. Seems you've got a habit of taking in strays like that boy in Tularosa. What was his name? Michael? Sam goes very still. The townspeople can see the change come over him. The quiet blacksmith vanishing beneath something harder, deadlier. Let him go, Victor. Whatever's between us, it's between us. Everything's connected, Sam. Past, present. Thorne pushes Gabe away roughly. You have until sunset tomorrow to leave town. After that, well, history has a way of repeating itself. He remounts his horse, but Sam's voice stops him. You're right about one thing, Victor. Everything's connected, but you forgot what happened last time you gave me an ultimatum. Their eyes lock, 2 decades of hatred bridged in an instant. Then Thorne wheels his horse around. Sunset tomorrow, Iron Sam. Don't make me finish what Tularosa started. As the gang rides out, the townspeople explode with questions. But Sam is already striding toward his workshop, his mind racing. He finds Rose and Maggie waiting inside. The Iron Sam? Rose demands. The one they wrote about in the papers. It was another life, Sam starts, but Maggie cuts him off. We need to know everything, she insists. If we're going to help you fight them, no. Sam's voice is firm. You're going to pack what you can carry, take the women and children to the mission in Cedar Ridge. Thorne's not bluffing. This is our home, Rose says fiercely. We're not running. Sam looks between them, seeing the same determination he once saw in the faces of Tularosa's townsfolk. History repeating itself indeed. But this time, he won't let it end the same way. Then God help us all, he mutters, moving to unlock the trunk that holds his past. As nightfall over to Copper Springs, Sam's workshop becomes a center of activity. Sheriff Wilson stands over a crude map drawn on butcher paper, his weathered face grave. Thorne's men will likely come from the north and east. Railroad camps that way. What about Sebastian Drake? Deputy Cooper asks, eager as always. Shouldn't we wire the territorial marshal? Drake's got marshals in his pocket, Sam replies, cleaning his Colts with practiced precision. By the time honest law arrives, this'll be over one way or another. Old Joe Freeman enters, carrying a wooden crate. Found these in my cellar. Saved them from my fighting days. Inside are several Civil War revolvers, well maintained despite their age. Ain't much, but they'll shoot straight. Sam examines one, nodding approval. Get these to anyone who knows how to use them. Rose, are your men reliable? Rose Martinez crosses her arms. My bartender fought with Juarez. The cook was a Buffalo soldier. They'll stand. And I can shoot, Maggie Wheeler adds firmly. When Sam starts to protest, she continues. My father made sure all his daughters could handle a gun. This is my home too, Sam. A ghost of a smile touches Sam's lips. Your father was a wise man. He turns to Reverend Hayes. Michael, The boy Victor mentioned. He was your age. The Reverend nods understanding. The one you couldn't save at Tularosa? He was like Gabe, brave, foolish. Sam's voice grows distant. Thorne's men were holding the town's cattle in the old mission. Michael thought he could open the gates alone. They caught him, used him as bait. His hands stopped their mechanical cleaning. I tried to negotiate. Thorne gave me until sunset to leave town. Like now, Sheriff Wilson observes. Like now. Sam reassembles his gun with quick, sharp movements. Only difference is that this time I know what Thorne's capable of. A commotion outside draws their attention. Gabe bursts in, breathless. Riders coming. But it's not the Thorne gang. They rush outside to find a group of Crow warriors approaching, led by a man Sam recognizes. 2 ravens? The Crow warrior dismounts, his face painted for battle. Ironhawk, he greets Sam by a name few remember. We heard Scarred Snake has returned. You know these men? Wilson asks, surprised. Sam nods. 2 Ravens people helped me track Thorne after Tularosa. Good friends, good fighters. He turns to the warrior. This isn't your fight, brother. You stood with us against raiders. 2 Ravens replied simply. We stand with you now. 10 warriors, all good shots. As Sam and 2 Ravens discuss positions, Maggie approaches him privately. You've lived quite a life for a simple blacksmith. None of it simple, Sam admits. After Tularosa, I hunted Thorne for months. The trail led through Crow territory. They were having trouble with rustlers. I helped, then kept helping, trying to make up for. He pauses. Eventually, I realized revenge was eating me alive. Hung up my guns, learned to work iron instead of lead. And now? Now, I'm wondering if I was wrong. If running from what I am got these people into this mess. Maggie touches his arm. These people love you, Sam. Not despite who you were, but because of who you are. A protector. Their moment is interrupted by Deputy Cooper. Sam, rider coming in fast. Through his spyglass, Sam recognizes one of Drake's men, riding hard from the railroad camp. The man nearly falls from his horse as he reaches them. Thorne's gone crazy, he gasps. Shot Drake dead in his own office. Said something about not sharing power or profit. He's gathering every gunman and hard case in the territory, offering double wages for anyone who will ride with him. Sam's expression darkens. This isn't about the railroad anymore. He's coming to finish Tularosa. How many men? Wilson demands. 30, maybe more. Getting drunk on Drake's liquor, talking about burning the town. 2 Ravens speak quietly. Many enemies make strong medicine. The spirits will favor us. Spirits won't stop bullets, Sam replies. He surveys the town he's called home for 5 years. Good people preparing to die for their land, their homes. Just like Tularosa. He makes his decision. Sheriff, get your men on the roofs. 2 Ravens, your warriors know how to fight from horseback. Use it. Rose, your people know the alleys. They'll be our second line. Joe, start moving the children and anyone who can't fight to the root cellar under the church. And me? Gabe asks, trying to stand tall. Sam kneels before him. I need you to protect Miss Wheeler and the other women in the cellar. Can you do that? The boy's disappointment is obvious, but he nods solemnly. As the town mobilizes, Sam returns to his workshop. The forge's heat reminds him of another time, another battle. He begins heating metal, not for plowshares this time, but for war. By dawn, the streets of Copper Springs will be fortified with caltrops and makeshift barricades, courtesy of Iron Sam's final smithing project. Sunset tomorrow, he murmurs, watching the metal glow. Time enough to remind them why they feared that name? Dawn breaks over Copper Springs with an eerie quiet. Sam walks the streets, checking positions and fortifications. 2 Ravens warriors are hidden in the rocks above town, while Sheriff Wilson's men are positioned strategically on rooftops. The morning sun glints off gun barrels barely visible in windows and behind barricades. Reminds me of Sunday mornings, Reverend Hayes says, joining Sam, when the whole town's holding its breath before service. More like the calm before a storm, Sam replies, adjusting a loose board in one of the barricades. His guns hang openly now, no longer hidden beneath his blacksmith's apron. A horse's whinny breaks the silence. Deputy Cooper rides in fast from his scout position. They're coming. At least 40 riders coming up from the south. South? Sam's eyes narrow. They were supposed to come from the north, from the railroad camp. It's not just Thorne's men, Cooper continues, breathless. I recognize some faces. The Carson City gang, the Miller brothers, even some of the Shadow Creek outfit. They're all riding together. Thorne's built himself a small army. Sheriff Wilson observes grimly. Sam nods. That's why they came from the south, been gathering more men all night. He turns to Rose Martinez. Get everyone into final positions. And Rose, if this goes bad, it won't, she interrupts fiercely. But if it does, there's enough dynamite in my cellar to take half of them to hell with us. As the defenders take their positions, Maggie Wheeler approaches Sam one last time. I wanted you to know. Whatever happens today, you've given this town something worth fighting for. Sam looks at her, seeing the strength behind her gentle demeanor. Miss Wheeler? Maggie, she corrects him. If we're going to die today, at least use my given name. A rare smile crosses his face. Maggie, get to the cellar. Keep Gabe safe. And you keep yourself safe. Iron Sam. The thunder of hooves grows louder. Sam takes position behind his workshop's reinforced wall, overlooking the main street. Through gaps in the planks, he sees them coming. A dark tide of riders, guns gleaming in the morning sun. Victor Thorne rides at their head, his scarred face twisted in anticipation. Iron Sam! His voice booms across the empty street. Last chance. You and these fine folks can still walk away. Like you let them walk away at Tularosa? Sam calls back. Tularosa was a business. This... Thorne gestures at his assembled gunmen. This is personal. 20 years. Personal. Then let's make it personal, Sam replies. You and me, Victor. These men, this town, they've got nothing to do with our quarrel. Thorne laughs. Always the hero. But you're forgetting something. His voice turns hard. I don't fight fair. He raises his arm, and hell breaks loose. Gunfire erupts from all sides as Thorne's men charge into town. But Sam and the defenders are ready. 2 Ravens warriors rain arrows from the rocks, while hidden shooters pick off riders with deadly accuracy. The first wave breaks against the barricades. Horses stumble on Sam's hidden caltrops, throwing riders. The narrow streets funnel attackers into killing zones where Rose's men wait with shotguns. Sam moves like a ghost through the chaos, his twin Colts speaking with lethal precision. Every shot finds its mark. Skills honed over decades haven't faded. He catches glimpses of the battle through gun smoke. Sheriff Wilson standing his ground against 3 attackers, Deputy Cooper proving his worth with a rifle, Old Joe Freeman defending the church with surprising vigor. But Thorne's men keep coming. A bullet grazes Sam's arm. Another splits wood near his head. He ducks into the alley beside Rose's saloon, reloading. Through the back window, he sees Rose herself wielding a shotgun, defending her property with Spanish curses and buckshot. Like old times, 2 Ravens appear beside him, bow in hand. Though you're slower now, Iron Hawk. And you're still a terrible shot, Sam retorts, but there's warmth in his voice. They fight together as they did years ago, covering each other's movements with practiced ease. Then Sam hears it, a scream from the church. His blood runs cold as he recognizes Gabe's voice. They're in the cellar, someone shouts. Sam turns to 2 Ravens. Cover me. He runs for the church, guns blazing. 3 of Thorne's men fall before him, but he barely notices. All he can think about is Michael 20 years ago and a promise he couldn't keep. Not this time. This time would be different. Sam crashes through the church doors, the sound of battle muffled by the thick walls. Bullets splinter the wood around him as he races toward the cellar stairs. At the bottom, He finds Reverend Hayes struggling with two of Thorne's men, while Maggie shields Gabe and the other children behind her. "Iron Sam!" one of the attackers shouts in warning, but he's too late. Sam's first shot takes him in the shoulder, spinning him away from the Reverend. The second man raises his gun, but Maggie proves her words about knowing how to shoot, her bullet catching him in the leg. "Everyone all right?" Sam asks, quickly checking the cellar for more threats. "Just scared," Maggie answers, though her hands are steady on her gun. "They were trying to use us as hostages." An explosion rocks the building above them, Rose's dynamite putting in work. Sam helps the Reverend secure the wounded men. "Stay here. Barricade the door after me." "Sam," Gabe calls out. I tried to fight them." Sam kneels beside the boy. "You did good, kid. But the real fight's keeping these people safe. Can you help Miss Wheeler do that?" Gabe nods, standing straighter. Outside, the battle has shifted. Many of Thorne's men are down or fled, but the remaining attackers have taken cover in buildings, settling in for a siege. Sam spots two ravens directing his warriors to higher ground, adapting to the changing fight. "Sam!" Sheriff Wilson calls from behind a water trough. "We got trouble at your shop." Through the gun smoke, Sam sees flames beginning to lick at his workshop's walls. 3 of Thorne's men are throwing torches through the windows, but worse, he can hear hammering from inside. They're after his forge. The weapons, Sam realizes. All the guns he'd refused to modify for Clayton are still locked in his workshop's strongbox, along with documents that could implicate Drake's entire operation. He makes a run for it, bullets kicking up dust around him. Old Joe provides covering fire from the general store as Sam reaches his workshop's back door. Inside, smoke burns his eyes as he navigates the familiar space. 2 men are trying to break into his strong box with sledgehammers. Looking for these? Sam's voice makes them spin. His guns bark twice, and both men fall. But as he moves to retrieve the strong box, a familiar voice stops him. "Should have known you'd come for them." Clayton emerges from the smoke, his snake tattoo seeming to writhe in the flickering firelight. His wounded hand holds a gun steady. "Boss wants what's in that box." "Your boss is a dead man walking," Sam replies. "Just like you." Clayton's face twists. Big words from a man who's about to burn. He fires, but Sam is already moving. They grapple in the smoke-filled workshop, Clayton's youth against Sam's experience. A blow to Sam's wounded arm makes him grunt in pain. "Not so legendary now, are you?" Clayton taunts, pressing his advantage. But he's forgotten where they are, in a blacksmith's domain. Sam's hand finds a familiar handle. The hammer's weight is comfortable, natural. Clayton sees it coming, but too late. Iron meets flesh with a sickening crack, and the younger man crumples. Grabbing the strong box, Sam bursts out of the burning building. He's barely clear when the roof caves in, his life's work consumed by flames. But there's no time to mourn it. Gunfire still echoes through the streets. "Sam!" Rose calls from her second-floor window. "Thorne's men are pulling back, but something's wrong. Victor's not with them." A scream cuts through the air, from the church. Sam's blood runs cold as he recognizes Maggie's voice. "You really are predictable, Sam," Thorne's voice rings out. He stands in the church doorway, holding Maggie with a gun to her head. Somehow he'd found another way into the cellar. Always trying to save everyone. That's what got Michael killed, remember? Let her go, Victor. Sam steps into the street, a strong box still in hand. "This is what you want, isn't it? Drake's papers, proof of everything?" "Drop the box," Thorne orders. "And those fancy guns, too. We're going to finish this like we should have at Tularosa." Sam slowly sets down the box, his guns following. "Like we should have? You mean with you hiding behind an innocent woman?" "I mean with you dead," Thorne snarls. He shoves Maggie aside, raising his gun, but she doesn't fall. Instead, she drives her elbow back into Thorne's gut, just as Sam taught her during their secret shooting lessons. It's enough. A moment's distraction. Sam draws. 2 shots thunder as one. Smoke curls from both guns in the sudden silence. For a moment, neither man moves. Then blood spreads across Thorne's chest, directly over his heart. His scarred face registers surprise as he looks down. "You've gotten faster," he manages, before crumpling to the church steps. Sam holsters his smoking gun, the bullet grazes on his shoulder, barely registering. He quickly checks Maggie for injuries. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," she assures him, though her hands shake slightly. "The children?" "Safe," Gabe's voice calls from the cellar. He peers out, eyes wide. "We barricaded the door like you said, but they found another way in through the tunnels under the church." Sam helps Maggie steady herself, then turns to Thorne's body. The man who'd haunted him for 20 years, who'd driven him from Gunslinger to Blacksmith and back again, now lies still in the Montana dirt. But there's no satisfaction in it, only a bone-deep weariness. "Sam!" Sheriff Wilson's shout breaks the moment. "His men are regrouping at the north end of town." Indeed, the remaining outlaws, perhaps 15 strong, have rallied behind the water tower. Without Thorne or Clayton to lead them, they seem uncertain, but desperation makes them dangerous. They're trapped now, Deputy Cooper observes, reloading his rifle. Railroad camps behind them, our men are in front. Nowhere to run. Sam studies the situation. 20 years of gunfighting experience weighing the odds. That's what makes them deadly. A cornered wolf fights hardest. 2 ravens appear beside them, his war paint streaked with smoke and blood. My warriors can circle behind them through the rocks, catch them in the crossfire. "No," Sam's voice is firm. "Enough blood's been spilled today." He steps into the street, walks halfway toward the water tower. His voice carries clearly in the morning air. "Listen to me. Thorne's dead. Clayton too. Whatever they promised you, whatever brought you here, it's finished." "Easy for you to say," one of the outlaws shouts back. "You've got a home here. We ride out. We still wanted men." "Then ride south," Sam replies. "Mexico's 3 days of hard ride. Take Thorne's share of Drake's money. It's in my strongbox. Should be enough to start new lives." He pauses, letting that sink in. "Or stay and die here. Your choice." Murmurs run through the outlaws' ranks. Sam can see them wavering, calculating odds and options. Finally, one man holsters his gun, then another. Within minutes, they're mounting up. "You're either the smartest lawman I've met," their spokesman says, "or the craziest." "Not a lawman," Sam corrects, "just a blacksmith." They ride out, taking the strong box as offered. Sam watches them go, aware of the townspeople emerging from cover around him. Rose Martinez is already organizing cleanup efforts. Old Joe Freeman tends to the wounded with Reverend Hayes. Deputy Cooper helps Sheriff Wilson secure the few prisoners they've taken. "Will they be back?" Maggie asks, joining Sam. "Number men like that. You give them a way out with their pride intact, they'll take it." He looks around at his burning workshop, the bullet-scarred buildings, the bodies being carried away. "Though I might not be welcome here myself once people learn the full truth about Iron Sam." "You're wrong." Maggie's voice is firm. "Look around." Sam does. He sees 2 Ravens warriors helping townspeople extinguish fires, sees Gabe proudly showing other children the cellar barricade he helped build, sees Rose directing her bartender to share free drinks with defenders and wounded alike. This town isn't just buildings, Sam. It's people. People who stood together today, fought together. She takes his hand. "You didn't bring this trouble. You helped us face it, taught us to protect what's ours." "She's right," Sheriff Wilson adds, approaching Deputy Cooper. "Town council's already voted. We'd like you to consider taking on a new job." "Not interested in being a lawman," Sam starts, but Wilson chuckles. "Who said anything about that? Town needs a new gunsmith, someone who knows weapons, can spot trouble coming. Training deputies wouldn't hurt either." He grins. "Plus, we'll need someone to rebuild that workshop. Hopefully with better ventilation this time." Sam looks at his burned shop, remembers the peace he'd found working iron instead of lead. But maybe there was a balance to be struck, a way to use all his skills to protect this home he'd found. "Might need some help," he says finally. "I can learn." Gabe volunteers instantly, earning laughs from the adults. Could use a teacher, too, Cooper adds. Someone who knows their way around a gun can help folks defend themselves. He glances meaningfully at Maggie, who blushes. Sam feels the weight of his guns, tools that had defined his past. But now perhaps they could help secure a future. Not through violence, but through preparation, through teaching others to stand strong. Well, he says, suppose I'd better get started. 3 days after the battle, as Copper Springs begins to heal, a dust cloud approaches from the east. Sam spots it from the temporary workshop he's set up in Rose's storeroom. His hands instinctively move toward his guns before he recognizes the riders' uniforms. U.S. Marshals, Sheriff Wilson confirms, joining him at the window. Guess news of Drake's death finally reached them. The marshals ride in, led by a hard-faced man with a silver star and cold eyes. Marshal James Burke, Sam realizes. A name he hasn't heard in 20 years. Another ghost from Tularosa. Quite a mess you've got here, Burke observes, dismounting. His gaze fixes on Sam. Though I should have known when I heard the name Copper Springs. You always did leave a trail of bodies, Iron Sam. These bodies weren't my doing, Burke, Sam replies evenly. Take a look around. Town defended itself. Against what? A gang of legitimate railroad employees? Burke's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Sebastian Drake was a powerful man with powerful friends. They'll want answers. Drake was a criminal, Sheriff Wilson interjects. We've got proof. Had proof, Sam corrects quietly. Lost it with the strongbox. Burke's smile widens. Convenient. So all we have is your word against a respected businessman. A businessman who, unfortunately, can't defend himself. Being dead and all. 2 ravens materialize from the shadows of the saloon. We have many witnesses. My warriors saw everything. Indians? Burke scoffs. No offense, but their testimony won't hold up in a territorial court, especially not against Drake's lawyers. Sam studies Burke carefully. What do you really want, Marshal? Peace and order, Burke replies smoothly. The railroad's still coming through. Maybe if the town cooperates, it shows proper respect to Drake's memory and his partner's interests. You mean let them steal our land anyway? Rose Martinez says from her doorway, shotgun cradled in her arms. I mean be reasonable, Burke corrects. Otherwise, well, harboring a known fugitive is a serious offense. Fugitive? Maggie steps forward. Sam's no fugitive. Iron Sam's been wanted since Tularosa, Burke explains with false sympathy. 20 years is a long time, but murder warrants don't expire, especially when the victims include 2 federal agents. Federal agents working for Confederate holdouts, Sam counters, taking bribes to look the other way while Thorne's men terrorized innocent people. Prove it. Burke spreads his hands. Oh, wait, you can't. Any evidence burned up with your shop, didn't it? Old Joe Freeman speaks up from the crowd. I was at Tularosa. Saw those agents taking payoffs myself. More unreliable witnesses. Burke sighs. Face it, Sam. Town can either play nice with the railroad, or I can take you in. Your choice. Sam's hands hover near his guns, but Maggie touches his arm. Around them, townspeople are gathering. Sheriff Wilson and Deputy Cooper, Rose and her men, 2 ravens and his warriors, even Reverend Hayes and Gabe. You want witnesses? The Reverend steps forward. I've been keeping records. Every threat, every crime committed by Drake's men. Signed affidavits from townspeople, documented evidence. The church keeps excellent records, Maggie adds with a small smile. We may have lost Drake's papers, but we've built our own case, one that will stand up in any court. Burke's confident demeanor slips slightly. That's interesting, but it doesn't change the warrants on Iron Sam. About that, Sheriff Wilson drawls. Just got a telegram from the territorial governor this morning. Full pardon for Samuel Hawthorne, in recognition of his service to Copper Springs and other communities. He pulls out an official-looking paper. Seems the governor's been hearing good things about our town's stand against corruption. 2 Ravens chiefs has some influential friends in the territorial capital. The Crow warrior grins. Many moons of trading. Many stories shared. Burke's face darkens. This isn't over. The railroad? We'll have to negotiate fairly, Sam finishes. With the whole town, unless you'd rather explain to your bosses why you're defending Drake's criminal empire. The marshal looks around at the united front before him, townsfolk, natives, and former outlaws all standing together. Finally, he remounts his horse. You've changed, Iron Sam. Gone soft. No, Sam replies. Just finally learned what's worth fighting for. As the marshals ride out, Sam feels a weight lift from his shoulders. The last ghost of Tularosa laid to rest at last. Think they'll be back? Gabe asks. With different tactics, Sam nods. But we'll be ready. Part 9. New Foundations. The autumn wind carries the sound of hammering across Copper Springs. 1 month after the battle, Sam's new workshop rises from the ashes of the old. The whole town has pitched in. 2 Ravens warriors hauling timber, Rose's men helping with the heavy lifting, even Reverend Hayes lending his carpentry skills. Bigger than the old one, Deputy Cooper observes, helping Sam hoist a roof beam. Needs to be. Sam wipes sweat from his brow. Gunsmithing takes more space than basic blackwork. Plus, we'll need room for teaching. Below, Gabe struggles with an armload of shingles, determined to help. Maggie steadies him, her other hand holding building plans she helped design. The new workshop will include a small classroom space. Her idea. Sam! Old Joe's voice carries urgency. Riders coming. But these aren't marshals or outlaws. A group of farmers approaches from the north, led by a weather-beaten man Sam recognizes from the next valley. Henry Parker, Sam greets him. Long ride from your spread. Word travels, Parker replies grimly. About how Copper Springs stood up to Drake's men. About a blacksmith who remembers what justice means. He looks at his companions. We've got troubles of our own. Railroad's been pushing hard, trying to force us off our lands. When we refused their offers, accidents started happening, fires, spooked cattle, broken equipment. Sam exchanges glances with Sheriff Wilson. Same tactics they tried here. We're not asking for charity, Parker continues. We can pay for help. Just need someone to teach us to defend what's ours. Someone who understands both iron and lead. Before Sam can respond, Rose Martinez steps forward. Your folks will need lodging while they train. My rooms are available at fair rates. And my warriors can patrol your lands while you learn, 2 Ravens adds. Keep the railroad men honest. Sam looks around at his people, his community, already moving to help their neighbors. He remembers his own words to Burke about what's worth fighting for. We'll need to expand the classroom, he tells Maggie. She smiles. Already working on the plans. The next few days bring more changes. Farmers rotate through town in small groups, learning not just shooting, but strategy. Sam teaches them to fortify their homes, to create defensive positions, to work together. Maggie helps organize the training schedules while Gabe proudly assists with basic gunsmithing lessons. Just like a school, Reverend Hayes remarks one evening, watching farmers practice at the newly built shooting range. More like a community, Sam corrects, adjusting a farmer's stance. People helping people. But not everyone welcomes the changes. Sam notices strangers in town, railroad company men trying to look inconspicuous, taking notes on who comes and goes. Burke's marshals make regular patrols past the town limits, a reminder of federal attention. They're scared, Old Joe observes, not of guns, but of people standing together. That's what really frightens them. One morning, Sam finds Maggie adding something to her lesson plans. Teaching more than reading and writing now? History, she replies. The children should know about Tularosa, about Drake, about their parents' stand, about a blacksmith who helped them find their courage. Speaking of courage, Sam clears his throat. Been meaning to ask you something. But he's interrupted by shouts from the street. A rider gallops in, one of Parker's men, his horse lathered. Railroad's called in strikebreakers, he gasps. Pinkerton men, 20 of them headed for Wilson's Creek. That's the Parker spread, Sheriff Wilson says grimly. Sam checks his guns, no longer hidden but worn as tools of his trade. Get 2 Ravens, and someone finds Rose. We'll need her dynamite again. Sam, Maggie catches his arm. What you were going to ask? He looks at her, this woman who's helped him build something more than a workshop, more than a school. It'll keep. Got some teaching to do first. The sun hangs low over Wilson's Creek as Sam and his group approach the Parker ranch. 2 Raven scouts have already located the Pinkerton men. They're making camp in the shadow of Parker's North Ridge, their equipment suggesting a long stay. Professional outfit, Sheriff Wilson observes through his spyglass. Repeating rifles, proper field gear. These aren't common thugs. Makes them more dangerous, Sam agrees. Also makes them smarter. Might be able to reason with them. Rose Martinez scoffs. Pinkertons don't reason. They follow orders. Then we give them new orders. Sam checks his guns one last time. Sheriff, take your deputies around the east side. 2 Ravens, get your men in those rocks above them. Rest of you stay with the wagons until my signal. What signal? Deputy Cooper asks. Sam mounts his horse. Trust me, you'll know it. He rides openly toward the Pinkerton camp, noting their disciplined response. Men move to defensive positions smoothly, but nobody shoots. Their leader steps forward, a tall man with a cavalry bearing and a well-trimmed mustache. That's close enough, the Pinkerton captain calls. This is private property. Funny, Sam reins up. Was about to say the same thing. This land belongs to Henry Parker. Mr. Parker's claim is in dispute. We're here on behalf of the Western Railroad Trust to secure company interests. By secure, you mean burn out honest farmers? Sam's voice carries across the cooling air. Like Drake's men tried in Copper Springs? The captain's eyes narrow. Sebastian Drake's methods were regrettable. We represent legitimate business interests, operating within the law. Law's got a funny way of changing depending on who's paying for it. Sam shifts in his saddle. But some things don't change, like people's right to defend their homes. Is that a threat, Mr. Hawthorne? Sam Hawthorne. Though some folks used to call me Iron Sam. The name ripples through the Pinkerton ranks. Their captain's face tightens. The Iron Sam? From Tularosa. Same one who stopped Drake's men in Copper Springs last month, Sam confirms. Now I'm giving you a chance to ride out, more than Thorne got. We have orders. You have a choice, Sam interrupts. Look around. On cue, 2 Ravens warriors appear on the ridgeline, bows drawn. Sheriff Wilson's men emerge from cover, rifles ready. Behind Sam, the wagons roll forward, revealing Rose's men and Parker's farmers, all armed and determined. Railroad's paying you to pressure farmers, Sam continues. But they're not paying you to die, 20 of you, twice that many of us. And unlike Drake's men, we know this land. The captain surveys the forces arrayed against him. Even if we leave, the railroad will just send more. Probably, Sam agrees. But next time, send men willing to talk first. Railroad wants to build through here? Fine. But they'll deal fairly with the people who work this land. No more strong-arm tactics. You're asking us to go against our contracts. I'm offering you a way to complete your mission without bloodshed. Railroad needs cooperation more than corpses. A tense moment passes as the captain considers. Finally, he nods. We'll withdraw? But this isn't over. Never is, Sam agrees. Question is, how do we want it to continue? As the Pinkertons break camp, 2 Ravens join Sam. They will return with more men. Yes, Sam watches them ride out. But we'll be more ready. Every farm they pressure means more people training in town. More people standing together. Like tribes joining to face a common enemy, two ravens observe. Your town becomes stronger. Our town, Sam corrects. He looks at the assembled group. Natives and settlers, lawmen and former outlaws, all united. Copper Springs is changing, maybe the whole territory with it. Later, as they ride back to town, Maggie brings her horse alongside Sam's. That was quite a speech. Ever considered teaching diplomacy instead of gunfighting? Reckon they go hand in hand these days. He pauses. About what I wanted to ask earlier. Sam, riders coming. Cooper's warning cuts him off again, but this time it's friendly faces. More farmers from the south, hearing rumors of Copper Springs stand against the railroad. More people seeking help, seeking training, seeking community. Town's getting crowded, Sheriff Wilson comments. Sam watches the sun set behind the mountains, thinking of his burned workshop rising anew, of Maggie's expanding school, of a community growing stronger through adversity. Good thing we're building bigger, he says. Winter settles over Copper Springs, but the town's heart burns warm. Sam's new workshop has become a gathering place, not just for training, but for planning. Maps cover the walls, marking railroad holdings and farmer alliances. Rose's Salon serves as an unofficial headquarters where information flows as freely as whiskey. Another farm signed with us, Deputy Cooper announces one snowy evening, marking the map. Miller's Place, over by Eagle Creek. That makes 17, Sheriff Wilson calculates. Nearly every independent farmer from here to Carson Valley. Sam studies the growing network of allies they've built. Each mark represents people standing together defending their homes. But it also represents a threat to the railroad's plans, one they won't ignore forever. Letter from the territorial capital. Maggie enters, shaking snow from her shawl. Governor's under pressure. Railroad's friends in Washington are pushing back. They can push all they want, Rose declares. We've got the law on our side now. Law's one thing, old Joe cautions. Money's another. Railroad's got deep pockets. As if to prove his point, a commotion erupts outside. Two ravens burst in, his usual calm shattered. Iron Hawk, the railroad camp. They're moving. Hundreds of men, heavy wagons. Sam grabs his coat. At the edge of town, he can see torchlight in the distance. Through his spyglass, he counts at least 50 wagons and twice as many men. Not just Pinkertons this time, Sheriff Wilson observes grimly. Look at those wagons. They're carrying building supplies. They're planning to stay. And enough arms to outfit a small army, Sam adds, noting the telltale shapes of gun crates. Back in town, he finds Maggie organizing the women to prepare food and medical supplies. Like you taught us, she says. Be ready for anything. Get word to the outlying farms, Sam instructs Cooper. Tell them to bring their families to town. Better to defend one position than 20. Through the night, farmers arrive with wagons loaded with supplies and determination. Two Ravens warriors patrol the perimeter, while Rose's men fortify buildings. By dawn, Copper Springs has transformed into a fortress. Sam walks the streets, checking preparations. He finds Gabe teaching younger children to load cartridges under Reverend Hayes' supervision. Just like you showed me, Senior Sam, the boy demonstrates proudly. Good man, Sam ruffles his hair. But remember what else I taught you? See, the best fight is the one you don't have to fight. That's right. Sam continues his rounds, stopping to help where needed, offering quiet words of encouragement. He finds Maggie in the schoolhouse, now converted to an infirmary. You should rest, he tells her, so should you. She touches his arm. Sam, if this turns bad, it won't, he assures her. Railroad's trying to intimidate us, show of force. And if it's more than a show? Before he can answer, old Joe hurries in. Riders coming. Under a white flag. Sam finds Sheriff Wilson already waiting in the street. 3 men approach, a Pinkerton captain Sam doesn't recognize, a railroad executive in an expensive coat, and Marshal Burke. Quite an impressive operation you've built, Iron Sam, Burke calls out. Almost like you're preparing for war. Just protecting our homes, Sam replies evenly. Something about hundreds of armed men arriving uninvited gets folks nervous. The railroad executive steps forward. Mr. Hawthorne, I'm Theodore Whitfield, Vice President of Western Railroad Trust. I've come to negotiate. Awful lot of guns for a negotiation. Insurance? Whitfield smiles thinly. Your reputation precedes you as you grow at influence in the territory. Not my influence, Sam corrects. People's choices, to stand together. Indeed, a fascinating experiment in democracy. Whitfield's tone suggests it's anything but fascinating. Unfortunately, progress can't be held hostage to local interests. The railroad will be built. Nobody's stopping your railroad, Sheriff Wilson interjects. Just saying you'll build it fair, pay honest prices for land, respect property rights. We've tried reasonable offers, Whitfield signs. They were refused. Now we must consider more direct approaches. Like Drake's approach? Sam's voice hardens. That didn't end well for him. Drake was a blunt instrument. We prefer subtlety. Whitfield produces a document. For instance, this telegram from the territorial governor. Seems he's reconsidering your pardon, Iron Sam. Something about new evidence from Tularosa? Spring brings more than just fresh grass to Copper Springs. With the railroad's cooperation secured, settlers and merchants flood into the territory. Sam watches from his workshop as new buildings rise along the main street, bringing both opportunity and challenge. Another gunsmith setting up shop, Deputy Cooper reports one morning. Third one this month. Calls himself Fast Eddie from Chicago. Sam continues working his forge. Town's big enough for competition. That's not the problem, Sheriff Wilson enters, looking troubled. These new gunsmiths, they're not just selling weapons, they're selling stories about Iron Sam, the legendary gunfighter turned teacher. Stories don't concern me, Sam replies, but Wilson shakes his head. They're drawing trouble. Young guns looking to make a name. 3 arrived just yesterday, all asking about you. Before Sam can respond, 2 ravens appear in the doorway. Ironhawk, riders coming from the south, not friendly. No, Sam decides, this isn't a town problem, they're here for the legend. Then they get all of us, Maggie's voice is firm. She stands in the schoolhouse doorway, students safely inside. That's what we built here. Sam looks at his wife, remembering why he fell in love with her strength. But before he can argue, the riders reach Main Street. Their leader, barely old enough to grow a proper beard, sits tall in his saddle. Iron Sam, he calls out. Name's Lieutenant Marcus Wade, formerly of the 7th Cavalry. Heard you're teaching men to fight. Teaching them to live, Sam corrects. Something you boys might consider. Wade laughs. Live like what? Soft townsmen? Railroad slaves? He spreads his arms. West is changing, old man. Men like us, with the skills, we should be taking control. Teaching people to fear us, not work with us. What did you learn in the Army, Lieutenant? Fear and control. Learned that power speaks louder than words. Wade's hand hovers near his gun. Learned that legends need testing. Sam steps forward, but Gabe suddenly rushes out of the workshop. Senor Sam, the new telegraph. Message from Judge Hayes, the railroad. One of Wade's men draws a lightning-fast gun aimed at Gabe. Before anyone can blink, Sam's bullet takes the gun from his hand. The shot so precise it leaves the shooter's fingers intact. That's one test, Sam says quietly. Want 5 more? Wade's confident smile falters. In Sam's stance, he finally sees what he's challenging. Not just skill, but experience, purpose, the weight of a lifetime's choices. How'd you draw so fast? The lieutenant asks. Genuine curiosity replacing bravado. They say you don't even practice anymore. Just teach and work iron. Man who only practices drawing fast, Sam replies, usually ends up dead young. Real skill is knowing when not to draw. Like now. Wade's hand moves away from his gun. Like now. Sam nods toward the saloon. Rose serves a fine breakfast, better than fighting on an empty stomach. After that, if you're interested in real learning, my school has room. The tension breaks. Wade's men exchange glances, suddenly looking very young and uncertain. Sam sees their hunger, not just for food, but for direction, purpose. "What about the telegraph?" Sheriff Wilson asks as the young men head toward Rose's. "Can wait," Sam decides. "These boys need breakfast first, then we'll see if they're ready to learn about building something instead of destroying it." Later, as Sam shows Wade's men around his workshop, he catches Maggie's knowing smile. She sees what he sees. Another chance to turn would-be enemies into allies, to help lost young men find a better path. "Like someone else I knew," she whispers, squeezing his hand. But the telegraph from Judge Hayes still waits, its urgent message unread. And in Carson City, forces are gathering that will test not just Sam's gun hand, but everything Copper Springs has built. By evening, Sam finally reads Judge Hayes' telegraph. His expression darkens with each word. "Railroad's Board of Directors overruled Whitfield's agreement," he tells the gathered town council. "They're sending a new representative, James Blackwood. He's known for getting results." "How bad?" Sheriff Wilson asks. Hayes says Blackwood made his fortune during the war, selling weapons to both sides. Since then, he's specialized in resolving territorial disputes for the railroad. Towns that resist tend to have accidents. Rose Martinez spits. "Like the accidents Drake arranged?" "Worse. Blackwood's smarter, more patient." Sam paces the council room. He works within the law, his version of it. Brings in his own judges, own marshals. Makes everything look legal. "When?" Two Ravens ask simply. "Train arrives tomorrow at noon. Brings Blackwood and his personal security force. 40 men, all ex-military." The council erupts in worried murmurs. Even with Wade's group now on their side, they are outnumbered. But Sam raises his hand for silence. "There's more." Hayes included a private note. He holds up a second paper. Says Blackwood was behind Tularosa. He funded Thorne's operations through shell companies. Used Drake as a front man here. Been manipulating things from the shadows for years. Maggie steps forward. "Then we have him. With Judge Hayes' evidence." "Takes time to build a legal case," Sam interrupts. "Blackwood won't give us that time. He'll move fast, try to break our alliance before Hayes can act." The farmers, old Joe Freeman realizes, if they threaten the outlying farms first. Sam nods grimly. "Town's too strong to attack directly, but isolate us? Pressure our allies, make examples of a few homesteaders?" "We could evacuate the farms," Deputy Cooper suggests. "Bring everyone into town." "Abandon their homes? Their crops?" Rose shakes her head. "Might as well surrender." Two Ravens speak quietly. "My warriors could watch the farms, give me a warning, and make Blackwood's job easier." Sam turns to the window. "First thing he'll do is try to turn the territory against us. Armed natives near settler homes, he'll cry uprising faster than a rattler strikes." The council falls silent, the weight of their situation settling in. Everything they've built, the alliances, the trust between different peoples, the hope for a better way, all threatened by a man who profits from division and fear. Gabe, who's been listening from the corner, suddenly straightens. "What about Fast Eddie?" "And the other new gunsmiths." Sam turns. "What about them?" "They came here because of your legend, Senor Sam, because Iron Sam teaches now. What if—" The boy's excitement builds. "What if you taught more, not just locals but others, good people who want to learn, want to help?" Maggie's eyes light up. The boy's right. Blackwood expects to find a town. What if he finds a school? A place where peacekeepers learn their trade. More than that, Sheriff Wilson adds. A symbol. Show the territory this isn't about resistance. It's about education. Progress. Sam studies his apprentice with pride. Might work, if we move fast enough. Cooper, send telegrams to every friendly town within driving distance. Rose, your contacts in the saloon trade. Spread the word. 2 ravens. My people will carry the message to tribes who wish to learn new ways. The warrior nods. Many young braves seek wisdom of both worlds. As the council disperses to their tasks, Maggie touches Sam's arm. You're not just building a school now. You're building a legacy. Building a target is more like it, Sam replies. Blackwood won't like it. Might force his hand, make him move against us directly. Good, she says firmly. Better an honest fight than his shadow games. Sam watches the sunset paint Copper Springs in gold. Tomorrow, James Blackwood would arrive expecting to find a stubborn town ready to be broken. Instead, he'd find something new. Something that might just change the whole territory, if they survived his first move. Gabe, Sam calls. Round up Wade and his men. Time for some advanced lessons. Tonight, everyone learns to shoot in the dark. Dawn finds Copper Springs transformed. What was once simply Sam's workshop now sports a new sign. Copper Springs Academy of Frontier Arts. Students, farmers, merchants, peacekeepers, and natives alike practice in the early light, supervised by Wade and his men, who've taken to teaching with unexpected enthusiasm. Railroads right on schedule, Deputy Cooper reports, returning from his scout position. Blackwood's train just past Miller's Creek. Sam watches from the workshop doorway as Rose's men distribute ammunition. 2 Ravens warriors have melted into the surrounding hills, invisible but ready. Sheriff Wilson drills the townspeople on emergency signals. Different from Thorne's attack, Maggie observes, checking her own rifle. More organized. Different enemy, Sam replies. Thorne was a hammer. Blackwood's a knife. Looks for weak spots, strikes when you're not looking. The town is prepared as best they can. Every building harbors armed defenders, but they're dressed as students, merchants, ordinary folk. Sam's idea. Let Blackwood see a school first, a threat second. Rider coming. The call goes up. Under white flag. A single horseman approaches. Marshal Burke, looking uncomfortable in a clean uniform. Sam meets him in the street. Quite a change, Burke gestures at the academy sign. Turning outlaws into teachers now? Everyone deserves a chance to change, Sam replies. Even railroad men. That's actually why I'm here. Burke dismounts. Blackwood sent me to warn you. He's different from Drake, from Thorne. He understands men like you. Does he? Says you're dangerous because you give people hope. Make them think they can stand together, change things. Burke shifts uneasily. Says that's bad for business. Whose business? Railroads, or the men who profit from keeping people afraid and divided? Burke glances at the armed students practicing nearby. He'll use that against you. Say you're building an army. Turn the territory against you. Unless you leave. Tonight. Just you. No one else gets hurt. Town keeps his deal with the railroad. Everyone's happy. Sam studies the marshal. Except the next town Blackwood targets. And the next. Not your problem. Never was. Choose to make it mine. Sam turns away. Tell Blackwood if he wants to talk, I'll be at my forge. As Burke rides out, Gabe approaches. He's scared. Burke? Yeah. No, Senor Sam. Blackwood. Why else send a warning? Try to make you run? Sam smiles at his apprentice's insight. Maybe. Question is, what's he planning that's got him scared of a simple school? The answer comes with the noon train's whistle. As steam and smoke billow across the platform, Sam counts the cars. 3 passenger cars, 2 cargo, and something else. A heavy flat car with a tarp-covered mass. James Blackwood steps onto the platform like he owns it. Tall, elegant in a black city suit, his gray hair and beard immaculately trimmed. He looks more like a banker than a killer. Behind him come his men, professionally armed and uniformed in railroad company colors. But Sam's attention is on that covered flat car. Something about its shape. Blackwood approaches, smiling pleasantly. Mr. Hawthorne. Or do you prefer Professor now? Sam's fine. Indeed, I must compliment you on this academy idea. Quite clever. Makes it harder for me to justify direct action. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. Almost as clever as gathering farmers and natives as students instead of allies? Everyone's welcome to learn. Yes, I'm sure. Blackwood gestures at his men, who begin removing the tarp from the flat car. That's why I brought a teaching aid of my own. Something to demonstrate the futility of resistance. The tarp falls away. Sam's blood runs cold. There, gleaming in the Montana sun, sits a Gatling gun. The Gatling gun's brass fittings catch the sunlight as Blackwood's men position it to command the main street. Sam notes the extra ammunition boxes, the professional way the crew handles the weapon. This isn't for show. They know how to use it. Impressive, isn't it? Blackwood's voice carries genuine pride. Latest model. 10 barrels, capable of 200 rounds per minute. The future of peacekeeping, according to the patent office. Peacekeeping? Sam's voice is quiet. That's what you call it? Progress requires occasional demonstrations of authority. Blackwood adjusts his silk vest. Much like your own legend, Iron Sam, sometimes violence serves a greater purpose. Around them, the town has gone silent. Students and townspeople watch from doorways and windows, their practiced casualness replaced by genuine tension. Sam spots Maggie ushering children into the schoolhouse cellar, just like during Thorne's attack. Interesting choice, Sam observes. Bringing military hardware into peaceful negotiations. Oh, this isn't a negotiation. Blackwood smiles thinly. This is a lesson, one I've taught many times. He gestures at the surrounding hills. Your native friends up there? The farmers watching from the buildings? They need to understand progress is inevitable. Resistance only brings pain. As if on cue, more of Blackwood's men emerge from the train cars, wheeling out crates marked Property of U.S. Army. Sam recognizes the stenciling. Ammunition, lots of it. Army supplies, Blackwood explains. Officially lost in transit. Tragic, really, how often that happens these days. Almost as tragic as native raids on settler communities, or farmer uprisings against railroad authority. The threat is clear. He's ready to spark a war, pin it on Sam's allies. That's your plan? Sam steps forward. Frame my students for attacking settlers? Turn the territory against itself? Your students? Blackwood laughs. Let's be honest, Hawthorne. You're building an army. I'm simply responding in kind. He waves at the Gatling gun. Though I suspect my response carries more weight. Weight isn't everything. Sam's voice carries across the street. Rose? From her saloon's second floor, Rose Martinez calls out numbers. 112. That's how many students are in town today, Sam explains. Settlers, merchants, peacekeepers. 2 ravens? The Crow warrior's voice comes from somewhere above. 43. Braves from 7 different tribes, Sam continues. Sheriff? 67 farmers, Wilson adds from his position. All legal landowners. Blackwood's smile fades slightly. Making my point for me. An armed force, a community. Sam interrupts. People are learning to protect their homes, work together, change the territory without bloodshed. He steps closer. That's what really scares you, isn't it? Not guns or numbers, the idea that people might find a better way. Pretty words. Blackwood signals his men, who begin cranking the Gatling into firing position. But words don't stop bullets. No, Sam agrees. But they can stop the men behind the guns. He raises his voice. Wade? Lieutenant Wade steps out of the crowd, still wearing his cavalry uniform. Sir? Tell our friend about your last posting. Wade straightens. 7th Cavalry, 3rd Division under Captain Harrison. For the first time, Blackwood's composure cracks. Harrison? James Harrison? My direct commander, Wade confirms. Who's mighty interested in those lost army supplies you're carrying? Matter of fact, he's probably reading my telegram about them right now. More uniforms appear in the crowd, Wade's men, but also others. Students Sam's been quietly recruiting, all with military connections. All witnesses to Blackwood's admission about the stolen supplies. You recorded everything I said, Blackwood realizes. Telegraph operator's been taking it down, Sam confirms. Being sent to every army post in the territory, along with sworn statements about your role in Tularosa, Drake's operations, everything. You can't prove? Don't need to. Just need to make the army investigate. How many officers have you bribed, Blackwood? How many will stay bought when the War Department starts asking questions? Blackwood's hand twitches toward his coat. In an instant, Sam's gun appears. That's not a good idea, Sam says softly. Man who relies on bigger weapons often forgets how to use smaller ones. The railroad man freezes, his own inexperience with personal violence suddenly evident. His men look uncertain, realizing their position. Stand down, Sam continues. Order your men to unload those supplies. Army patrol's already on their way. Judge Hayes made sure of that. Time to decide what kind of legacy you want to leave. For a long moment, the street hangs in balance. Then Blackwood slowly raises his hands. The railroad won't forget this, he warns. Good. Sam holsters his gun. Because we're about to teach them something new. 1 year later. The railroad tracks gleam in the Montana sun, but they curve respectfully around Copper Springs' boundaries, a testament to compromise and cooperation. Sam's workshop has grown into a proper school, where he teaches both metalwork and responsible gun handling. The sign above the door reads, Iron and Justice School of Trade and Defense. Maggie's idea, now his pride. Gabe, now Sam's official apprentice, helps teach the younger students while continuing his own lessons. 2 Ravens people work the railroad lines, their knowledge of the land proving invaluable. Rose's Saloon has become a meeting place where railroad men and locals share drinks and stories, finding common ground. On quiet evenings, Sam and Maggie sit on their porch, watching the town grow. Sometimes Judge Hayes visits, bringing news from Carson City. The governor has appointed Sam to a special commission on territorial development, though he prefers working with his hammer and teaching his students. They say the legend of Iron Sam hasn't died. It's just changed, like the man himself. Now it's a story of redemption, of finding strength not in standing alone but in helping others stand together. And in Sam's workshop, beside his carefully maintained guns, hangs a simple iron sign he forged himself. It reads, The strongest metal isn't iron or lead. It's the bonds between good people. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.